Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're excited to talk to you today. Before diving in, a few quick housekeeping items. Today's presentation is being recorded and will be available on pointb.com later this week. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. With that, let's get started. So Zamir, could you please introduce yourself to the folks on today's call?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Zamir Baber from Chicago. I lead Point B's digital strategy and transformation practice. My career has been focused largely on helping organizations and companies across a multitude of industries transform business models and their operations using new and emerging tech, largely coming from the digital space.
Great. And hey, everybody, I'm Kevin Mackey. I'm based in the Seattle area. I lead Point B's technology build practice. My career has been largely focused on helping business leaders leverage technology and data to better serve customers. So why are we here today? We are here because we know that leaders like you need to compete better and faster than ever to acquire new customers and to keep the ones that you have. And to do this, you need real-time, accurate understanding of how customers are experiencing your products and services, and you need to respond quickly and accordingly. The good news is that today, more than ever before, customers are telling you exactly what they need and expect to be happy. So those of you who can collect and understand the voice of your customer, or VoC, and translate this into action are going to differentiate yourselves from the rest of the pack. So today we're going to provide a brief overview about how you can use technologies like AI and intelligent automation in order to, number one, listen to and understand the voice of your customer across many different channels, in order to translate high volumes of VoC data into really relevant, useful insights. A third, to drive more coordinated cross-organization collaboration and action, and ultimately to meet and exceed your customers' expectations. So Zamir, who should care about this concept?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question, Kevin. When you think about all the different groups that could benefit from these types of concepts, it really is everyone. We've seen the groups that really take advantage of this in the most compelling ways, really focused on those groups really responsible for customer strategy, product planning and management, a lot of R&D teams to better understand their products that they're releasing, sales and marketing team, even engineering teams, and of course, customer support to really get their pulse on how all the different conversations are happening out in the marketplace. And given that, Kevin, I'd love to get your thoughts on sort of why you think this is so important right now.
Yeah, it's really important right now. A few reasons. Number one, we know that many leaders across most industries are prioritizing this space to compete and stay relevant. In Gartner's recent customer experience survey, artificial intelligence and voice of customer technologies were prioritized as organizations' top investment for customer experience improvement. Second, as we all experienced, 2020 was tough, but 2020 did create some opportunity. More and more customers have had to move to digital channels in 2020, which has created more opportunity for customer analytics to better understand customer behaviors and needs as they interact across these many digital channels. A third, your customers now expect really personalized and relevant engagements. And so you can now incorporate all this better data around customers' previous interactions, sentiments, and needs to guide how to engage in more personalized and relevant ways. And finally, your customers expect you to act fast, not next week, not today, but right now. So Zamir, I know you've been working on solutions related to voice of customer, customer experience, customer acquisition and retention for a long time. How would you have done this type of thing in the past, and what were some of those shortcomings?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've been doing this for a number of different industries, as you can imagine. While I've been a consultant, prior to coming into consulting, I worked at a major retailer, a Fortune 50 retailer, also working on the same types of things. I think generally in the past, the biggest challenges were just silos, the organizational silos that exist between product teams, customer teams, and marketing teams, customer service teams. And those silos aren't just organizational in nature, but they're also technology in nature. You have different groups with different technologies. Sometimes they would talk with each other, sometimes they wouldn't talk with each other, sometimes they would talk to each other with a lot of manual intervention. And as a result, it's always been a challenge to really get that holistic view of how different conversations are happening across the board, regardless of where they're happening and in the tone in which they're happening. I think in the past, some of the biggest challenges that organizations have faced with these limitations, these silos, is really around sort of three core areas. One is specificity. If you think about the challenges that organizations have getting directly to their customers and reaching out to one-on-one messages, customers have had a tremendous challenge in that space. And if you can imagine the data that exists amongst different silos, how much more of a challenge it has been in the past to really sort of get to the specific type of language, specific type of messages that people are expecting. Number two, I think a big challenge has also had been really around sophistication. If you have had all these data points that really weren't talking to each other, or these organizations that really weren't talking to each other, it's been really hard for organizations in the past to really mature beyond that. In many ways, those organizations have become status quo in how they have had pulling in information, and to get to a level of maturity that's been required has been a true challenge for organizations. And then lastly, because of the silos that have existed, speed. If you think about just the amount of bureaucracy organizations have had, or just the processes that organizations have had to pull insights across all of that and to be able to react in a meaningful way, takes a lot of time. And sometimes your customers require insights right away, require content right away. And some of the biggest challenges have always been around bringing all that information together in a meaningful path forward. So given all those challenges, Kevin, and given what you're seeing in the marketplace with all the evolution in technology, what's possible today?
Yeah, great. There is a lot more that's possible today, and we'll touch on a few concepts here. Number one, first off, modern intelligent automation technology is making it faster and easier to capture and consolidate voice of customer data across multiple channels and data sources, like websites, emails, voice, mobile apps, and more, allowing you to capture literally millions of global reviews of your products and services instantaneously, which is not possible. Next, artificial intelligence technology like natural language processing, coupled with advanced analytics, can allow you to unpack unstructured or free-form sentiments from your customers and automate the process of parsing and making sense of that customer feedback and turn it into something that's really actionable. And that can come from a few different areas. It can come from direct feedback that's initiated by you and your organization, for example, surveys and market research. But even more interestingly, I think indirect feedback, the things that are initiated by customers, like product and service reviews on e-commerce sites, social sites, and customer interactions with each other. And then third, through inferred feedback from transactional data like clickstream and purchase data. Next, you can use AI-driven analytics to convert all of this customer feedback into actionable insights, using tools like dashboards, alerts, customer journey maps, and recommendation action. Finally, you can leverage modern collaboration tools for much better, faster internal collaboration with each other and more coordinated customer-facing action. So in summary, there's a lot here, but in summary, through the use of many of these emerging technologies, companies like yours can now gain real-time understanding of what customers and even your potential customers need and desire. You can take action in a more deliberate, coordinated, and rapid fashion. And one final note about this, this is not a theoretical framework. This is based upon capabilities and solutions that we've built and delivered for Point B customers in the real world. So Zamir, for those who can employ this type of approach and these type of tools, what kind of outcomes can those organizations expect?
Yeah, Thank you. A lot of great benefits of really tapping into the potential here across the entire life cycle of how customers interact with companies. Really, sort of three core areas that I see a huge benefit for organizations. One is in the marketing messages and lowering the cost of acquisition and improving customer loyalty. You now have data to be able to reach out to people more directly in real time in the methods that they're requesting you to have those conversations. Immediately, the potency, the importance of those messages become incredibly important. And so to be able to send out more direct one-on-one messages rather than blasting out content to as many people as possible, immediately lowers the cost of acquisition, the cost of acquisition to send out marketing messages. And if you're really meeting customers where they're expecting, really there's a huge improvement there on customer loyalty. I think second is around the product areas. And so people are constantly having conversations about products out in the ether. And to be able to understand whether it's ratings or reviews or Twitter or any number of data sources, to be able to pull that information in and see which features of products are very important, what's working really well, what jives really well with customers, and to be able to design your product portfolio around that data set becomes really important. In the past, it's been a significant challenge to get to the level of intelligence required to really create a product portfolio that perfectly meets your customer needs. Third is around brand advocates. To really, there are a lot of people out there who are constantly talking about brands, or constantly talking about your products. Being able to identify proactively how to get to them is a huge benefit here. And then lastly, just quality. And so a lot of the insights here, you'd be able to understand where potential issues might come up and to be able to get in front of that as soon as possible, whether that's the quality or any other issues, allows you to really prevent any sort of negative things from happening in a way that's very meaningful and very quick. And so this is just a sampling of how all this kind of comes together. But there are a lot of other benefits, but obviously the benefits here are pretty substantial.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you, Zamir. So let's see, there's a lot of points that we've covered here quickly today. If you wanted to leave people with one thing to remember from this, what would it be from your perspective, Zamir?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So there are a lot of different places in which people can have conversations about an organization. A lot of different places where people's insights can be manifested from. And in the past, a lot of that has sat in different silos. And using tools, Kevin, that you've talked about, it allows organizations to pull insights across those different silos and have a more relevant conversation with people. Just because an organization has silos, it doesn't mean that people think in those same silos when communicating with companies. And really, a lot of the tools and capabilities, Kevin, that you've been talking about allows you to overcome the limitations of having some of those challenges of bringing those data together and being more relevant to customers. How about you?
Great. Yeah, for me, we talked really quickly about some sophisticated technology concepts today, like artificial intelligence, intelligent automation, natural language processing. And some of you, I believe many of you, are very early in your journey with modern technologies like these. But the key thing I want you to remember is that you don't have to be an expert to get started. There are tools and resources you can take advantage of today that make this easier and more effective than ever. We've helped several organizations go from very limited capabilities to employing products and solutions that have helped move them ahead of their competition. Again, you can start today. So with that, we're now going to take some questions from our attendees. Please just give us a minute to take a look at the questions that have come in thus far, and we'll start to address those. Okay, a simple, quick question. What's the best way to get started in something like this? Zamir, do you want to take a first crack at best ways to get started?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a question we often get. I think it's really important to understand a couple of things as you get started. One is as you think about your core goals and objectives to meet your customer needs, making sure that there's a common understanding of what those are across all the different potential silos that this might impact. And then two, being really mindful and cognizant of the fact that there are breakpoints between those different silos and really understanding how those conversations are happening across those silos. Where are their current limitations that are preventing you from getting to where you want? What does your North Star look like? Really even understanding potentially what the competition or other companies are doing. All of those data points will at least help you understand where should you be spending time investing your capabilities, and how you at least create the starting point to start moving in the right direction.
Great. And just to add on to that, as I think about where to get started in terms of the data and the technology, as you think back to that slide that I showed about what's possible now, there's some really great opportunities to get started today on that indirect feedback that's initiated by customers. There's a lot of indirect feedback on global e-commerce site that's available, and that with emerging technologies around automation and natural language processing, you can really quickly get your arms around this information for competitive advantage, right? Yeah. So let's look at, let's see, one more that's coming in here that came in. What industries is this type of approach best suited for? That's great. I think, yeah, there's some slightly different answers across industries, but Zamir, I'll let you lead off with this.
Yeah, so industries, there's some commonality between how industries are tapping into this potential. There's also some stark differences. Some industries are more leading than others. Two that come to mind, one is the media industry really has been tapping into the full potential of different conversations that are happening out there, to the point where sometimes it's allowing them to rethink the way they're creating content. I think a clear example out there is Netflix, right? They're taking a lot of the insights that they get from their own platforms and feeding that into AI to even create scripts, at least starting point for scripts. And if you think about just the world that we're living in, where you can just pull a bunch of data from your subscribers and create scripts from it, pretty intelligent, cool stuff. And then certainly from a retail standpoint, I spent 10 years in retail. A big part of how retail is looking at this is understanding sort of how do you pull information from products, product reviews, just how people are talking about things on Twitter, and bringing all that insights together to make more educated decisions on what types of products to create, how do you fix issues, what are the attributes of different products, how do you more quickly get products to certain areas. If you can harvest and understand where there might be some challenges in your supply chain, maybe you put a more emphasis in your supply chain. If you find out there might be some other issues with some of your products, how do you reach out very quickly to people who are buying that stuff to make sure that they are completely aware of it? Two use cases, media and retail. Kevin, I'm sure you've also seen this in a few other places as well.
Yeah, really quickly, I would add the technology industry to that. There's a lot of opportunity, especially around technology devices, PCs, devices, peripherals. There's a lot of data available in that space. It's a very competitive space. Customers are switching loyalties on a regular basis, and customers are also really vocal, especially online. So there's a lot that you can learn and a lot that you can do to improve your product planning, your product lifecycle, go to market, as well as customer support in that particular industry. So we have run up against our time here, so we're gonna close out the Q&A right now. We really appreciate you taking the time to participate today. We're glad you could join us. We hope this session was helpful. In the next day or two, we'll email a link to the recorded presentation. If there's anything else you'd like to review, or if you'd like to share it with your colleagues, please reach out to us directly. If you have questions, there's a couple more questions that have come in through the chat window, and we will address those directly. But if there's any additional questions, please reach out to me or Zamir. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.